Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Welcome again to my channel. For this video, I'd like to discuss about text analytics of the Quran. And I mentioned in my previous video that I recently got my Master of Arts in Islamic Studies. And my research was all about text analytics of the Quran. So if you can actually download my thesis here at ResearchGate. So you just go to ResearchGate and you can actually download the file itself, right, which is the text analysis of the Quran. Once you've downloaded the file itself, this is how it would look like. And I just want to at least show you parts or some of the results that I have here in my thesis. So I did touch several topics in this paper, but I want to just discuss with you the rhythmic analysis. We know that the Quran, at least for those who knows the Quran, when I say the Quran, I'm referring to the Arabic version of it, of course. No, when I say the Quran, when we say Quran, it's actually the Arabic text, right? It's not the translation. So if you know how to read the Arabic and you start reading the Quran, you will experience the rhythmic features of the Quran, starting from the very end all the way, starting from the very first verse all the way to the last verse in the Quran. It actually rhymes, right, end to end. And so I decided to just apply some statistical analysis on that one. And so if you can actually look here, this is it. So for example, one of the things that I looked into is the pattern of the last pronouns syllable of some of the surahs. So in this case, I have here Surah Al-Fatiha, and you can see that, or at least if you read the Surah Al-Fatiha, the last syllable of that, you will realize that all of the last pronoun syllable has a vowel of kasra or e, for example, in this case. And if you actually add a consonant, the last consonant of the recited syllable, you will find that it's simply a transition between im and in. So for example, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Ihdinas siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. So it's actually a transition between im and in, and this is the pattern that we get, right? If you actually add the previous consonant, as the in this case we are dealing now with 3 to 4 characters in that recited syllable, then this is the pattern that you get, right? If you look at Surah Al-Rahman, this is another chapter in the Quran. This is the pattern that you get, right? And so on and so forth, right? And you will actually find out that this repeated spike here, for example, this is actually referring to the repeated refrain in Surah Ar-Rahman, for example. And for those who don't know, it's actually, I think, this one. For example, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. This one is repeatedly given in Surah Al-Rahman. And this is another analysis that I did. This is just actually showing the similarities of the last recited syllable between the 114 surahs that we have in the Quran. When I say surahs, it's actually similar to chapters, but it's not exactly chapter, but this is actually how the Quran is divided. So it's actually surah. So here I'm just actually trying to study if there are surahs that are similar in terms of the last recited syllable. And as you can see here, one of my findings is that Surah Al-Fatiha has a similar pattern, not exactly, but to some degree. I think the first four verses of Surah Ma'un, if I'm not mistaken, Surah Ma'un is actually similar to Fatiha because it ends with in, im, in, in, for example. So these first four verses of Surah Al-Ma'un has more or less similar last recited syllable between Surah Al-Fatiha and Surah Al-Ma'un, and they have also the same number of verses as well. So that's one of the findings that I have here. And the other technique that I also use is using the Joseph Skillinger's rhythmic theory. And this is one way of actually looking into, say, studying the patterns of the Quran. In this case, we are studying the prolongation of the Quran. And here, for example, I know prolongation of the syllables, right? So for example, for Surah Al-Kawthar, the way we analyze this graph is that, for example, the first verse of it, it's actually in I think it's in, so this would be in, and then we have madda here. So in أعطيناك الكوثر, that's the transition. And then فصل لربك وانحر, that's it, right? And then إن شانئك هو الأبتر, that's the last verse of it. And so we are now capturing the prolongation of the of each of the syllables, right? So this then serves as a profile of Surah Al-Kawthar in terms of like prolongation of the syllables, right? So you can use this as a signature or as a identity of that surah, and you can analyze, and you can use that maybe to further do some analysis, right? The other piece is I also look into, say, groups of syllables, right? Say, for example, all of the two syllables, for example, in the Quran. What is the characteristics of those? So most of the, say, two syllables in the Quran are composed of short vowel and then madda. So for example, Yasin. So this is one of the profiles you can see. Or for three syllables, most of it are composed of short vowel and then madda and then madda. For example, Alif Lam Mim, right? So this is for three syllables, right? And then as you can increase into 4 syllables, 5 syllables, and so on and so forth, you will actually realize that the last syllable is now, most of the time, is actually prolonged, right? In this case, if it is gray, we are referring to long vowels. So as you can see here, most of the last vowel or last syllable has a long vowel, right? And if you actually increase it from 10 syllables, as you can see, it's actually increasing now, and so on and so forth, for 15 syllables, and so on and so forth. Now, interestingly, here at 15 syllables, you'll find that there are verses with 15 syllables that has this pattern, wherein at, say, fifth syllable, it's has a long vowel, and then at sixth syllable, it has a madda, and then so on and so forth, right? And this group of verses that has these 15 syllables with this profile is actually referring to this is actually the profile of the refrain in Surah Ar-Rahman, which is say فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Guys, I'm sorry if you actually hear some background sound. It's actually an airplane. I'm actually near the airport. So you actually hear that. Anyways, so that's the profile of the Surah Rahman. So that's one of the findings that we get here, and so on and so forth. So there are many other results that I have here, but this is the results that you don't get, right, if you simply do it manually. Or you can actually get, of course, this type of results if you do it manually, but it would take you so much time, right? But here I was able to extract this by simply writing instructions to computers to do all of this processing, right? And this is one of the insights that you get from doing Islamic Digital Humanities. So yeah, I guess that's it for this video. Thank you, and I hope you learned something. Assalamu alaikum.